This question says, which of the following is the correct order of blood flow? So to aid us in answering this question, we can refer to this diagram here. Now keep in mind again, this information cannot be worked from first principles or solved with any calculation. The structure of the heart is the structure of the heart, so this is something that must be committed to memory with a complementary understanding of the physiology, biochemistry, and so on. So let's take a look at each of our options. Well, the first thing we can note is that they all start with the same thing. They all start with systemic circulation. And systemic circulation essentially just means the circulation of blood throughout the body. Oxygenated blood leaves the heart and is transported throughout the body, and then deoxygenated blood returns into the heart to be oxygenated once more. So because they all start with that, we can basically begin with the second option. So we have left atrium found in options A and B, and then in options C and D, we have the right atrium. Now, again, referring to our illustration here, we can see that blood will enter into the right atrium and then continue to the right ventricle. So with that said, we know that answer options A and B are not correct. Now again, we said that it is right atrium to right ventricle, and we see that both C and D list this correctly. Now after that, there's some disagreement, because option C says after the right ventricle, it continues to the pulmonary artery, whereas D says that it goes to the pulmonary vein. So here it's important to remember a fundamental difference between veins and arteries and why they're categorized differently. Arteries bring blood away from the heart, whereas veins bring blood to the heart. So for this reason, being we have blood that had just entered the heart through the right atrium, we know that it's going to be the pulmonary artery because blood is being carried away from the heart and into the lungs, whereas the pulmonary vein would be an entry point for blood into the heart. So for this reason, D is not correct, and therefore C is indeed the correct answer. And once again, we can see this through our illustration here. We have the right atrium continuing on to the right ventricle, where it will go through the pulmonary artery and into the lungs. And that's why it's called the pulmonary artery. It is the artery, and therefore the piping, so to say, where blood will transport into the lungs, and thus pulmonary. So once again, the correct answer is C.